What is going on, Panthers Nation? Carolina Dad here. The Carolina Panthers coaching staff is starting to come together. As promised, I said when we got to this phase, I'd start looking at the staff and who's been hired. So including Dave Canales, there have been 4 additional coaches that were hired, and they were just announced yesterday. Let's go ahead and take a look at who we are bringing in. And you're going to see a lot of folks from the Tampa Bay staff that have ties to Canales. Makes a lot of sense. I've already talked about Dave Canales, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time going through his profile and coaching history. I did a whole video on it, a whole podcast segment. But I will say I spent some time listening to some of Dave Canales' videos, and the Roll Coverage Pod put together 9 episodes of different clips that he was able to find, Nick, and shout out to Nick. And I went through all of those, and it was some really good insight just into how he got his start, what he wanted to do with coaching, the move from USC to Seattle, everything that happened in Seattle, and then the jump to Tampa Bay, and of course now the jump to the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. All right, you know all about Dave. Let's talk about the 4 guys that were named yesterday. 1, Harold Goodwin has been announced as an assistant head coach, run game coordinator. His history: started as a graduate assistant at Michigan, moved over to the offensive line coach at Eastern Michigan from 98 to 99, offensive line coach at Central Michigan from 2000 to 2003, then started his journey in the NFL. One thing that I think we're going to hear this year, or will not hear this year, is this message about all the coaching history. That's what was used in the last offseason. I don't think we'll hear a peep out of that because it was proven that all that history did not work out. But started as an assistant offensive line coach for the Chicago Bears for 2 years. Then to Pittsburgh as an offensive line coach, quality control coordinator. Indianapolis for a year. Offensive coordinator for Arizona from 13 to 17. And if you remember that NFC Championship game at Bank of America Stadium, he was the offensive coordinator. And remember, the Panthers dominated that game. From there, I guess he took some time off in between for 2 years. Went to Tampa Bay as an assistant head coach and run game coordinator from 19 to 23. And then now is the assistant head coach and run game coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. So first one off the board. Then we move into Parmalee, former player, played from 1992 to 98 with the Dolphins, and then 99 to 2000 with the Jets. He is your running backs coach. As a coach, he took a little time off, I guess, from being a player, then went back to Miami, started as a tight ends coach in special teams, then went on to Notre Dame from 2005 to 2009 for tight ends and special teams coach as well. Back to the NFL for the Kansas City Chiefs, 2010 to 12, tight ends coach. Raiders is where he started his journey as a running backs coach from 15 to 17. Was with the Falcons in 18 as a running backs coach. Then 19 was the assistant special teams coach and offensive assistant. 19 to 20 running backs coach for the Atlanta Falcons, special teams coordinator in 2020. And then back to Jacksonville as a running backs coach from 21 to 23. He was let go this year, and now he is your running back coach for the Carolina Panthers. So tight end, history with tight ends like that, history with running backs, and then not that it really applies, but special teams. He's got a background in special teams. You think about returners or some of the running backs that may be helping out in the return game. Something to watch. Next, we have Rob Moore, another former player. As a player, and I should say he's wide receivers coach. As a player, played for the Jets from 90 to 94, Cardinals 95 to 2001, Denver Broncos 2002. He was a practice squad member. When I look back at his stats, I think he was an all-pro, led the league in receiving 1 year, so really good receiver in his career, and now moving over to coach. He was the wide receivers coach for Montclair High School from 02 to 03, Phoenix Junior College in 09. I guess there was kind of a gap there between, making the transition to coach. With Syracuse from 2010 to 2012, then jumped back to the NFL with the Buffalo Bills from 13 to 14, the Raiders from 15 to 17, most recently with the Titans in 18 to 23. We know the Titans restructured a lot of things, or I should say, let go of their staff, so if he's available. And now he's the wide receivers coach for the Carolina Panthers. Tennessee hasn't been known for explosive receivers, but they did have A.J. Brown there for a little bit. Had DeAndre Hopkins this past season. So he does have some experience, and I do think he was part of the development of A.J. Brown, who we know ended up getting traded away. But good hire, in my opinion. And I'm not going to be over the top on any of these guys right now because I did that last season, and now it's more about me settling in. Talk about experience. Joe Gilbert, your offensive line coach, replacing Campman. I don't think I can read through this because I had to break his breakdown into two sections as far as his history. I mean, graduate assistant, he's been all over, primarily in the college ranks. So from 87 really until 2011, almost 2 decades, a little over 3 decades-ish, I guess technically not 3, about 2.5 decades he was in the college. You could see, bounced around quite a bit, all focused on offensive line. Was the head coach for Mansfield in 2000 for a very short stint, but really been offensive line coach. Started as an assistant offensive line coach for the Colts in 12. Then officially became the offensive line coach in 13. Did that through 15. Then back to assistant offensive line coach in 16 to 17. I'm not sure. I don't have everything in front of me to know what changes that occurred to make that happen. Went to Arizona as an offensive line coach and run game coordinator in 18. Was the Tampa Bay Bucks offensive line. They've had a pretty good offensive line. Not fantastic, but pretty good, right? For Tampa Bay from 19 to 23, and now he is your offensive line coach for the Carolina Panthers. So that rounds it out. Looking at, and we're going to get into one other candidate right now because he's not officially been hired, but all signs are pointing to him being hired. I'll clean up the graphic because I know this is kind of sparse right now. We'll get the full coaching staff on here as things change and evolve. Dave Canales is your head coach. Ajero Rivero, right now, the defensive coordinator. We're waiting to find out what's going to happen. I did a video on my thoughts about him. There's a report by Joe Person now that backs that up, that maybe he actually doesn't want to be here, and I don't blame him. So I think you could see a total reset, whether it's Dave wanting to do it, whether it's Rivero wanting to get out. Lots of things that will shake out as we watch this. Brad Idzik is now pinned at this moment to be the offensive coordinator. He was the wide receivers coach for Tampa, had history with Dave Canales, waiting for that to officially be announced. And then special teams. Special teams has not been announced. We know there's a few guys in the running for that, so we'll keep you posted. Jumping a little bit ahead because it sounds like from all reports that Idzik is going to be the offensive coordinator. He's not going to call plays. Dave Canales is going to call plays. But you have him at Stanford as a graduate assistant for the Seahawks as an assistant wide receiver, then assistant quarterbacks coach and offensive quality control in 21, assistant wide receivers in 22 with Tampa Bay in 23, and now offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. That's your roundup for everything that's happened. As the news changes and goes, I'll keep y'all updated. Y'all have a good one.